What is up, beautiful people of the internet? I go by the name of Wesley, and today we are reacting to the absolute legend of animal side of YouTube, TierZoo, with the video Were Pterodactyls OP. I'm excited. I have loved pterodactyls because they are the word. Pterodactyls is the word that introduced me to the silent P, because when I was a kid, I read it in my dinosaur books as pterodactyls, and I was like, Dad, this cool dinosaur flies the pterodactyl. And he was not impressed with my performance whatsoever. That being said, guys, I have no idea. I'm so excited. I think flying pterodactyls are just absolutely fascinating. That being said, subscribe down below for more reactions. And let me know in the comments if there's other reactions you want to see me do. Let's learn about some dad flying pterodactyls. Again, I was late. Whoa. That's a big old beak. Woo! Woo! Do you think that when they were doing Fall Guys, there was somebody just like on the mic and they were like, check, 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 check. Woo! Like, who's the guy who wooed for the Fall Guys sound effect? Because I want to meet him. They should do a whole podcast on that. If the game didn't die, there'd probably be a lot more interest in it. Oh, wow, yeah. That, oof, oof.
This video was made in partnership with CuriosityStream.
Get your money,
Flight is
TierZoo.
an ability which has been unlocked by a grand total of 4 separate factions in the history of the game. However, only one of these factions is no longer playable in today's version of Outside. I'm of course talking about pterosaurs. Pterosaurs still hold the record for the largest, most powerful flying builds in the history of the game.
Yeah, they're scary.
So why is it that the pterosaur build is absent from the current meta? Did they simply fall out of favor with the player base as players gravitated toward the newly added bird builds? Or were they outright banned by the devs?
Whoa.
Well, first,
that last one, you can't lie to me. That was a dragon. I don't care. No, you can't tell me that wasn't a dragon wreaking havoc on some village in medieval Europe somewhere. No, that's not a pterodactyl and the meteor that ended the dinosaurs. No, I don't care. That footage was from a movie. That was from Lord of the Rings.
let's discuss the pterosaur build's introduction to the game.
Let's go. I'm so excited. I love these dinosaurs.
So, directly following the biggest mass ban of all time, the update that came at the end of the Permian expansion, the Archosaur faction gained access to 2 new classes. The one that garnered most of the attention was the Dinosaur class, and for good reason. Dinosaurs ended up becoming one of the most over-centralizing, meta-defining builds of all time. However, the other new class was the Pterosaur, which, despite having a less dominant role in the Mesozoic meta, was honestly an even more shocking addition to the game. Prior to the Pterosaur's debut, flight was an ability restricted exclusively to the insect faction. No vertebrate.
I thought those were all pterosaurs flying around. I was like, damn, they're way faster than I thought they were. That's crazy. They don't even look like they're flapping their wings. Also, apparently I was wrong. So pterodactyls aren't dinosaurs. That's news to me. I was not aware of that. So pterosaurs, that's another factoid we just learned in this video.
Been able to make a flying build work yet. And because of that, insects had gotten away with some questionable strategies and hadn't changed much about their flagship builds in a long time. Pterosaurs were in the perfect position to punish the insect player base for their complacency. And on top of having a great matchup against insects, being able to fly gave them a reliable escape option during a meta where being able to escape meant the difference between reaching the endgame or getting one hit by extremely overpowered jaws.
That looked like most Tinder dates when the guy shows up and he looks nothing like his profile and the girl's just like, and she literally flies away.
Now, while it is true that eventually pterosaurs started investing a lot into the power stat too,
Whoa.
when they were first added to the game, they were all far from gigantic. Initially, their base stats looked something like this.
Just fly higher. Why
Nowhere
are you even
near
down
the
there?
power and size of their
eggs.
later builds, instead keeping the vast majority of their base stats allocated to mobility. Despite having an HP stat about as high as a piece of paper, this strategy worked great. There were no serious aerial threats they needed to avoid, as the griffinflies had been banned a few updates prior, and the birds of prey wouldn't come out for a long time.
Those are so big.
This meant pterosaurs were in the perfect position to diversify and test out all kinds of wacky strategies. In addition to chasing down flying insect players, pterosaur remains also found that this small, agile playstyle also functioned great in the role of support class, cleansing the giant dinosaur players of parasites. Players looking for better XP rates could also opt for a fish-eating build, although with higher reward, of course, comes higher risk. To mitigate this risk, pterosaur mains eventually started to actually
That was a down B move if I've ever seen one.
some of their points into HP and power. Normally this is a bit of a gamble since larger size tends to reduce mobility. And while it did increase the startup lag for their takeoff move, they more than made up for this by gaining access to the soar ability, allowing them to fly for extremely long distances without using all that much stamina. Upon gaining this ability, some pterosaur players realized that a new playstyle had become available to them, the scavenger.
Ooh.
See, when the cost of traveling long distances becomes lower, it actually becomes a viable strategy to search for rare but extremely high value loot drops. Like, for example, the remains of a defeated sauropod player. It might seem risky to bank on being able to find that level of loot consistently, but it's a lot less risky than the alternatives, and when you can patrol an entire server, even the rarest loot isn't that hard to find. Plus,
Actually
them
makes a
spending
lot of
most of their
sense.
time flying minimize the time spent cooking.
It's like in Fortnite when people could do the glide and they would just glide all over the place, getting the best crap
Danger.
everywhere and finding
It's a
people,
good thing
right?
pterosaurs were able to spec into gigantism, because things were about to get a bit tougher for the smaller pterosaur mains. Their command over the skies was being challenged, as some of the dinosaurs had unlocked flight.
What? What?
Through an
birds.
entirely different combination
Duh.
of perks and attributes, a new faction of the dinosaur player base had
Duh.
discovered a way to use an ability
idiot.
originally intended only to provide pull resistance in order to fly. This was bad news for the pterosaur mains who liked the smaller, more agile playstyle, as these new avian dinosaurs were far better optimized for that niche, particularly in forest biomes. Their feathers were far less vulnerable to damage than the thin membranes that pterosaurs were using to fly, meaning that these new avian dinosaurs didn't have to worry about puncturing a wing when flying through a dense forest or jungle. Feathers also offer some blunt damage resistance, making any mid-air collisions less damaging. These avians were sorely lacking in size and power though, and so it was on that front that these pterosaurs opted to compete with them.
They look like chickens,
Soon
don't
the
they?
larger scavenger/opportunist type build became the pterosaur's only viable strategy, as the avian player base had control over the agile insectivorous niche. This might not seem like that bad a trade, ceding control of a rather fragile playstyle to another faction, while keeping control of a record-breaking niche never before seen in-game. And for a while, this was absolutely true. The pterosaur player base continued to thrive, scoring easy loot while still remaining out of reach of the overpowered giant dinosaurs. Unfortunately, those overpowered dinosaurs did end up inadvertently causing the downfall of the pterosaurs, because after an incredibly long run of dominating the meta, eventually the devs finally dropped the ban hammer. And this is where the pterosaurs' size came back to haunt them. The banning of the dinosaurs meant that those high-quality loot drops suddenly went from rare to non-existent. And with no way to keep up their huge food cost, giant pterosaurs became unviable.
This is
Meanwhile,
metal.
small builds like birds and mammals, which had been oppressed for so long by the giants they had to contend with, suddenly had free reign over huge territories. In particular, the bird's feather ability had its initial purpose suddenly become extremely relevant again, as the overworld temperature had cooled significantly due to the sun being blocked out by dust. Experimenting with new combinations of abilities is key to creating an innovative build that breaks the meta and gives rise to new dominance. And while the pterosaurs initially made some incredible strides in revamping the reptile class to exploit an open niche, in the end it was the birds whose adaptations won out, usurping an already established competitor and gaining air superiority that is yet to be challenged even in the current meta. Experimentation
so
is also
cool.
important to another build, the YouTube creator. The YouTube meta...
TierZoo's kills me. TierZoo kills me so much whenever his ad reads. His ad integration is so good. That's so funny,
isn't
man.
always conducive to established creators breaking away from their niche. If you publish something that your audience isn't interested in, you can kneecap the momentum your channel had built from the success of previous videos.
So funny.
This is where the creator-owned platform Nebula comes in. Nebula is a place where creators can get their wackier ideas both funded and realized. Sponsors
That's
is
so
not a Nebula
funny.
curiosity
Get your-
stream, along with thousands of other excellent nonfiction titles. And patrons on Patreon.
Get your money, TierZoo. You damn deserve it. That being said, guys, thank you so much for watching. I am Wesley. Hope you guys have a beautiful day. Please comment down below and let me know what other videos you want to see me react, whether that's from TierZoo, if it's other videos in the edutainment space, or if it's just something completely off the wall and not in this niche whatsoever. I'm open to it. That being said, I hope you guys have an absolutely beautiful day. Subscribe for more reactions. Take care of yourself. I'm out. Well, wait. Pterodactyls are dope. I'm out.